In this video, we'll be analyzing a scene from Black Mirror's Be Right Back. Specifically, how through the strategic use of natural and artificial lighting, semiotics, and mise-en-scène foreshadows what will become of the character Ash and how Martha's relationship with technology shifts. The first shot frames both the characters in the window, separated by the pane of glass. You see Martha inside eating breakfast at the table. We see Ash in the reflection of the outside window, backing away in his van at the exact moment she stands up and turns her back away from Ash's direction. This backing away shot is the last time we see Ash as his real-life self and foreshadows his exiting her life. The reflection in the window symbolizes the fact that after this moment, Martha will only have the memories of Ash and will reflect upon them. The mise-en-scène is early morning natural lighting pouring through the house. The only source of light is natural. The sound of the car's wheels on the gravel and the birds chirping are all you hear, giving you the idea that what's outside the window is what is important right now. Next, we are brought into Martha's work environment, which is bathed in bright white light from the outside. The decor of the house blends together in gently varying shades of beige, white, and even her outfit is the same shade as the curtains, giving you a sense that she is immersed in her environment and by extension her work. We see her working on a drawing of a cartoon dog on a large computer. Martha uses an organic-looking pencil on a computer made of wood that creates this realistic sound of graphite on paper as she draws. The line between technology and natural life are blurred almost imperceptibly. She is working on a dog, but is a cartoon of a dog that is rendered in natural colors, again making something real into something artificial. With a swipe of her hand, she materializes another more fully fleshed out dog, while a nearly identical version is placed behind and a little above it. The dog on the right isn't colored in and is almost a ghost version of the dog before her, symbolizing the two versions of Ash she will have later, the artificial fleshed out version and the memory of him. Martha is aligned in this shot directly to the left and in front of the curtain, implying something is off in her world, and she is being metaphorically blinded to what's outside the window. The window is now firmly in the center of focus and the only source of light. The room is somewhat dim, implying that Martha is in the dark about something, and the music becomes more eerie. We see Martha stretch and finally break her focus from the work. The shadow on the back of her hand shows that the sun has moved, and through the window you can see the sun shining evenly across the field. The shallow depth of shadows outside shows it's not morning anymore. Time has passed and things have changed both on the outside and internally for Martha. Martha can be heard sighing, indicating that she is tired of her task. The stretch she's performing opens her up to the world outside of her, and she unclasps her hands. The tree comes into clear focus as the music begins to swell, giving us the first inkling that something isn't normal. Now Martha is trying to capture an elusive moth, which seems to be compelled towards light outside, seemingly trying to return to its natural space. The moth is a nocturnal creature, so its presence at this time of day is somewhat unnatural, further lending to the unnerving feeling of the scene. Moths are a common symbol of imminent death in European cultures, and the moth seems to be aimed toward the tree that is out of focus behind it. The tree which keeps coming back into focus could be a symbol for the tree of life. The moth evades her capture, showing us that death is something she can't stop. The camera focuses on the clock as Martha turns her head, indicating her focus now firmly set on the time. We see the sun passing behind the tree. Now it is clear as much later, and the sun is setting on the tree of life. The crow is heard in the background, which is another symbol of death, as they are guides of the living into the afterlife. There is also a legend that when someone is going to die, a crow will appear by that person's window. This is where the first introduction of artificial light is seen. Martha returns to her work, but none of the dogs are in color now, giving you an insight to her mood. She puts her pencil away in a little compartment in the computer, showing us she is really done working now. She turns from the window and dials Ash. She leans in and looks up at the sound of his voice. The body language she displays shows she thought for a second it might be him answering. Now there is only one sliver of light left in the sky. The trees are now black silhouettes. What was earlier plain and clear is now unfamiliar and indistinguishable to Martha. Martha is entering into the doorframe from a different room in the house. She is no longer in what we can assume her own personal space, but now alone in a communal space she shared with Ash. The lighting is coming from a source in another room, shining on her back, while the rest of the space is dark, indicating that the brighter times are behind her now. The camera follows Martha in a point-of-view fashion into a dark living room, where she turns on a utilitarian overhead lamp and sits down on the couch. The camera pans in a half-circular fashion, which feels intense and slightly disorienting, showing us the increasingly frantic state she has now found herself in. Martha enters in the frame to the left, with the light falling again on her back. The color of the lighting is slightly green, showing us how sick Martha feels. The empty chair where Ash often sat is in focus, pointing towards a window, which is now black, only reflecting what's inside Martha's house, as she is frantically trying to gather information about what lies beyond that window. We cut to Martha's friend, whose face is illuminated by an artificial glow of the TV or computer, but by contrast is surrounded by loved ones. The lighting is minimal, showing us that although her friend is trying to shed light on Martha's situation, she too is in the dark. Martha's conversation is cut short as blue and red lights flood her kitchen. The lights themselves are the announcer of the bad news. Martha opens the door to the officers. The high angle of the camera and the flashing blue light against the officer's cheek show the doom and helplessness Martha feels now. As Martha closes the door and turns away from the bad news, as she walks into the hall, she becomes completely obscured by darkness and grief. Before passing out of the frame, ending the scene, she is briefly lit up once more, showing us that Martha still has to go on with her life. So there we have it. The lighting in the episode is symbolic of Martha's sources of joy and comfort. Martha starts off her day with her husband alive and light pouring through her window. By the end of the day, she is reliant on artificial light sources, much as she will be later reliant on artificial sources of lightness and joy later in the episode, where she communicates to an AI version of Ash, which, like the lamp over her shoulder, does a good job of mimicking the sun, but simply does not compare in the end. What do you guys think of this scene? Let me know in the comments.